My mate's just bought a second-hand Tesla with 300,000 miles on the clock, and he's letting me borrow it for the weekend.
Okay, so this is going to be my first drive of a Tesla ever. I've never even been in one before. I'm going to drive it around 300 miles to visit my parents in Merseyside and then visit some old school friends. And I'm going to give it a really good review in the process. So about the car, this car is a Model S from 2015. It's an 85D model, which means when it was new, it would have had a battery capacity of around 85 kilowatt hours and a range of well over 250 miles. The 312 miles on the clock means that it's done over 30,000 miles a year, and that has surely meant that this car should be struggling now. Creaks, major issues, and maybe an unusable battery. Well, the diagnostics on the battery says it still has 85% of the original battery capacity. So let's assume around 68, 70 kilowatt hours, which should do at least 200 miles on a full charge, maybe upwards of 250 on a good day. And I understand that this car has been used as a taxi in the past, so it would have had regular maintenance and safety checks. And at first glance, there doesn't seem to be much to be worried about its age or its mileage. Maybe driving it to Merseyside and back will show me something that's not quite perfect. But before we get into the car itself, I think I probably need to deal with the elephant in the room, with some thoughts on Tesla. I mean, over the last 10, 15 years, there are a few companies or organizations that stand out that we could say have made a real difference to the world around us, particularly in response to climate change. We might name check someone like Ecotricity as a low carbon electricity supply that's helped popularize low carbon electricity. Maybe someone like Octopus Energy in recent years that's gone on to build on that. We might shout out a YouTube channel like Fully Charged or Heat Geek or other in that kind of climate sphere. We might think about ethical clothes from Patagonia or refurbished tech from Back Market. But in thinking about this, the biggest and boldest and probably most disruptive company that has arguably changed the game in the last 10 to 15 years is probably Tesla. You won't have heard me talk much on here about Tesla. I haven't really liked their owner for a good while, but over the last decade, Mr. Musk and his partially government-funded car company have brought significant disruption to the car industry as we know it. Whether I like it or not, without Tesla, the electrification of transport and the emissions reduction that nearly 1.5 million electric cars in the UK has brought might still just be a niche for early adopters. Without Tesla, we might have a couple of odd looking cars from Nissan, from Renault and from BMW, but arguably we wouldn't be in the place that we are now. I've never been in a Tesla before this weekend. But because I'm interested in this stuff, I've watched their growth and their progress fairly closely. Whether it's cars on the road with hundreds of miles of range, with futuristic but normal design, with big iPad-like screens inside, with autopilot and rapid charging all around the world, and then those less serious bits that are just under the surface that make the headlines, like ludicrous mode or their winged doors or fart machines in the car or maybe even Netflix in the car. Without Tesla, I think cars in 2025 would look very different. But then the manufacturing of these cars, the rollout of so-called gigafactories around the world, a world that doesn't have much meaning but tends to be included in government policy. And then actually what all this means to provoke improvements in battery development. The impact is much more than just a few electric cars. And then you could think about the solar roofs that aren't available in the UK but I think are in the States. The Powerwall batteries that are available in the UK. They've changed much of the energy sector in this country and much further afield. So I find it hard to like Tesla, but I can definitely acknowledge the disruption that they've brought, particularly if I separate the brand from the owner. But in doing so, I'm risking ignoring some fairly repugnant stuff. whether it's Nazi salutes, some kind of responsibility for cutting aid to the poorest around the world, all whilst facilitating some really dangerous perspectives on Twitter. With Tesla and Elon Musk, we really can't separate the brand from the owner. And I can't really think immediately of another modern example where there would be maybe an impactful, maybe a good company or product that's linked so directly to political views that many people find abhorrent. And to be fair, there are times where the choices we make on where to spend our money are impacted by the reputation or the political position of a company or an owner of that company. And Tesla is no different, with the owner having views that many, in the UK at least, find unpleasant. There are now plenty of other options for buying good quality electric vehicles on the market. So I can recognise the disruption that cars like this Model S has brought to an industry that really needed change, at the same time as recognising concerns about the politics of its owner. In the latest car sales figures in the UK, Tesla sales were up 2.5% for March 2025 compared with March 2024. Maybe Elon Musk's views aren't having as big an impact as I might have anticipated. Okay, that's the elephant in the room. Back to the car. Let me tell you a little bit about it. Well, this is one of the cars, it's that old, that had the Tesla SC01 feature, or just in plain terms, free rapid charging at Tesla superchargers. So as well as trying the car, I'm going to use the supercharger network for the first time and use it for free. The supercharger network was one of the big draws in buying Teslas over the last 10 years. Some of the cars like this one having free charging, many more just having access to really quick charging with a really seamless interface. The supercharger network is now open to many more cars than just Teslas, and they tend to be at rates that are fairly cheap when compared to other rapid charging. So in many ways, I'm looking forward to trying them out for the first time. The charge network was another thing that meant Tesla stood out from the crowd. I mean, if you go back 10 years, you might have expected charging an electric vehicle to be pretty difficult, but Tesla built out a network all over the world to facilitate their cars being able to charge. And I guess this has changed the game much more broadly too. And with these chargers now being open to other cars through the CCS charging protocol, that supercharger network helps facilitate low emissions travel much more broadly. Okay, that's plenty. Let's head out into the car and give it a good old test drive on the way down to the Wirral. Okay, so navigating in a Tesla is super easy. Let's go to Upton, where my parents live. It's going to tell me where I need to stop. Scotch Corner, Hartshead Moor, and arrive there. I might actually say let's have some more by the time we get there so I can get going in the morning. Cool, let's get going. Okay, there's a few things that stand out when you get into this car, and I guess it's the same as pretty much any modern car, but everything just works. So this is like 10 years old, this thing, but it's connected to my phone really easily. It just turns on when I get into the car. There's no on button. It's just ready to go. As I get close with the key, it opens for me. The navigation just works. There's not too much information. I don't need to know the range because it's getting me to the supercharger that I need at the right time. But something really nice about things just working, and that's like, I guess one of the things about like tech that, like really good tech, it's kind of what Apple sells itself on, is that everything's working together and you don't need to think about things and it just works, and often it doesn't. But it feels like with this, getting into the car, it just works, which is, yeah, begrudgingly wonderful. But yeah, first impressions, it just feels like this is, yeah, a piece of tech that's just works. It's not a car, it's a piece of tech. And then first impressions for driving, this is obviously a big car. It didn't fit in our parking space. It's probably much more plush than any car I've ever driven.
I'm not, yeah, I've said before, I'm not a car guy, and this is, yeah, the poshest car that I've ever driven in. But it's smooth, it's really quick if I want it to be, it's quiet. I love the display. I'm sure I can change that, and I probably will going forward, but the way that it shows you things that you're close to on a little picture of the car, the way it's showing the directions like really simply. Yeah, there's not too much information here, and it's just, yeah, it's all you need. It's great. I think I'm saying some really positive things about Tesla here. Maybe I need to rein that in. Why is it going to become an Elon Musk fanboy? Okay, to Scotch Corner for some supercharging. We shall see. I've just discovered the autopilot, which is kind of amazing. So I've set it at max speed, but it's just going to follow the guy in front, and it's turning on its own. Oh my goodness. Again, yeah, just becoming a Tesla fanboy. I'm sure there are other cars that have this similar capability. Nissan Leaf doesn't. But yeah, this is just a car on a fairly bog standard road doing self-driving, and I've got to still like pay attention. I'm looking what's behind me, and I'm looking what's in front of me, and I'm touching the wheel. It probably means that I'm a bit more attentive, I guess. And it's coming to a roundabout here, and I think this age autopilot won't be able to sort out a roundabout, so I am going to take over. But for that stretch of road, that was really cool. Okay, so we're heading to Scotch Corner. It says we need the adapter, which I've got in the glove box here. It's preconditioning the battery for fast charging, and we'll get there with 21% battery left, and we'll charge for 17 minutes, and then we'll get on the road, which is great. Hilariously, the podcast that I'm listening to now is a climate energy podcast from Bloomberg called, in this episode, yeah, it's called Zero. It's really good. And this episode's called "Is Tesla's EV Supremacy in the Rearview Mirror," which seems, yeah, really interesting and apt. And I think, yeah, I've not started listening to it yet, but you can definitely begin to understand that some of the Chinese brands, your BYDs, you know, those kind of brands, now everyone's making really good EVs. You start to wonder whether this like dominance that Tesla's had on making high-end electric vehicles is kind of over. I was speaking to a friend of the channel, Jay, last night, who was talking about he was looking at getting a Tesla, was ready to go, and just found it really difficult with Elon Musk's perspective on the world to commit to that. So he's ended up getting a VW ID7 instead, and he's loving it. Do you wonder what impact Elon Musk and his worldview has had on the future of this car company? Anyway, I'm enjoying it. Okay, so we need to Okay, so now we are charging, and it says that we should stay here for 25 minutes. I've used the CCS adapter to supercharge. I wonder how quickly it's charging. It's only charging at 56 kilowatts, and that's probably faster than our Nissan Leaf would ever do. It's adding 175 miles per hour, but I think superchargers are supposed to be able to charge that bit quicker. So anyway, 20 minutes wait here. I'm not in a rush. This is great. Supercharger session, £0. That's fun, isn't it? Okay, that is us charged. And that was a very simple experience, and kind of enjoyable and kind of impressive. I think we had like 20 minutes in the end. We're now up to 50% charge, and we're going to go an hour and a bit down the road, hour and 8 minutes down the road. Stop again. I should say we didn't start on a full charge here. We started on like 35%, and that was partly because, yeah, I asked my pal who owns the car not to charge it fully because I wanted to try out the superchargers, but it could have been 100% at the start, and that would have got us all the way to mum and dad's. Back to the motorway. Windy, sunny day. Great day to be driving an electric vehicle. Lots of solar power, lots of wind power. Love it. Okay, wait to charge. That heart said more. And I am going to try something fairly narcissistic and search my latest video on YouTube. Let's search Tombre. Oh my goodness, there I am. I kind of can't believe this. This is like telly in a car. There's all my videos. Is Tesla finished? Electric vehicles are a mistake. Another one of my videos.
It's been
look, there I am in a car.
But finally,
in a car.
we have bought a second-hand electric vehicle.
Crazy stuff.
Okay.
Okay, hot shed more done. It's a bit of faffing about this time, I must admit. I parked the wrong side of the chargers and then didn't park close enough to the chargers. But yeah, we're good now. I've actually changed the route that the Tesla suggested, so I could get there a little bit more charged. So I've gone the shorter route using the Mersey tunnel, classic. So I should arrive in an hour and 40 now. We have 53% charge on the car, and we'll have 23% when we arrive, which will give me plenty to get going the next day as well. Overall, all going fine.
One day later.
Just left mum and dad's, and I'm gonna go meet some pals for a run from old school pals. So we're charging in Knowsley on these EV chargers, EV on the move, which are not Tesla ones, but it's still free, which is amazing. The car's like really nice to drive, really nice experience. 10 minutes here and then plenty to crack on with. It's a great view at this one.
Okay, I'm back home a few days later, and after about 350 miles of driving with 5 stops at Tesla superchargers and lots of playing with autopilot and some of the entertainment in the car, what is my conclusion? Well, I guess it's pretty much the best thing that I've ever driven. It's spacious, it's smooth, it's quiet, it's very fast. And really, I don't have any complaints about this car. I guess if I compared it to this car, this Tesla Model S, to our Nissan Leaf, which is only 4 years old, it's done 260,000 miles less, but has a much smaller battery and a little bit smaller range. Well, it isn't really comparable for the quality of this car. The Nissan Leaf is great, and it does everything we need. But before trying this, I probably wouldn't have wanted to take the risk on a 300,000 mile second-hand car. But seeing this car, driving it, and seeing how well it runs, it does make me think whether our choice was the right one. I guess one thing I would say is that driving a Tesla, I do feel a bit, well, unsure. As I mentioned earlier in the video, I do wonder whether this means I'm supporting some fairly awful politics of the company's owner. And I don't know, would that come into your decision making if you were thinking of buying a used or a new Tesla? For me, it might be a big step to want to own one of these. It's not the right size for us, and we don't need a lot of the features, but you can definitely recognize the quality and I guess the level of disruption that Tesla's brought over the last decade or so, despite the absurd views of the company owner. And you can see a fairly bargain car with free supercharging that would be a fantastic asset for most people, and particularly for someone who drives for work, like a taxi driver. You can see a lot of these similar cars available on AutoTrader for not that much money. I've been reflecting a little bit over the last few days, and I think there are a few things that I could add about my experience with the Tesla. I'm not sure I really fully appreciated how well it's doing after over 312,000 miles. Our old petrol Nissan Pulsar that had done 112,000 miles was a year older, had a regular £1,000 plus bill at its yearly MOTs. It had an oil leak that our car mechanic couldn't fix and was getting less and less fuel efficient. There isn't really a comparison to the slightly younger but much higher mileage Tesla. And I guess obviously the Tesla was a much more expensive car when it was first registered and at a much higher spec. But it does also say to me that electric vehicles are a step change in technology that potentially is just better, more reliable, simpler to drive, probably more enjoyable to drive. And over the last couple of days, I did have a bit more context on the history of this car from my mate who owns it. And to be fully transparent, it has had some work recently to fix a charging fault. So it's not been completely maintenance free. And I'm sure there would have been other costs over the life of this Tesla. But also, if you compared it to a fossil fuel car, I don't know any or many that fossil fuel cars that are still running at 300,000 miles, I guess with or without significant and costly work. Do you know a car with that much mileage? So it makes me wonder how we could feel about buying second-hand cars. I mean, would you be more comfortable buying a fossil fuel car because you have your friendly car mechanic around the corner who could fix any problem? Or would you be happy to take a step into a bit of an unknown with a second-hand electric vehicle, not likely to have similar significant problems, but if they do, you'd probably be able to find an EV specialist nearby that could help you with them anyway? What do you reckon? I wonder whether this 10-year-old 312,000 mile Tesla that is running, I mean, really well after a bit of work is a good example of how electric vehicles are potentially here to stay and how second-hand electric vehicles could be a risk worth taking. So, I am fairly impressed by this car and I've really enjoyed driving it for a few days this week.